Hello everyone. Does it work? It's okay. Yeah. So I'm Mihai, Alisie. I'd like to start by saying that it's a pleasure to be here, and it's simply amazing to witness firsthand how far this whole space has moved. I mean, just think about it, from this idea that blockchains can be used for decentralized digital currencies. In 5 years we leaped to the notion that they can be used to run a decentralized world computer. And the crazy thing is that it still feels like we're barely scratching the surface, and we're still figuring out what and how we can build it. So with that in mind, today I'm going to present AKASHA, a decentralized social network powered by the Ethereum blockchain and the interplanetary file system. But before diving into AKASHA, I'd like to briefly mention the defining moments that led to this point. And my story in this space begins in 2011 when I discovered Bitcoin. And this year was an awakening for me in many ways. And this is how a few months later I created Bitcoin magazine together with Vitalik here in the room. And I served as editor-in-chief until late 2013, when my full attention was required for what was shaping up to be the Ethereum project. As a co-founder in the early days, I've led the Swiss efforts to establish the business and legal infrastructure, which was critical for the Ethereum pre-sale campaign. And it's like Google trying to update me. Speaking of Google, we had a situation where it was calling for fonts on a Google server, and like people that have installed the AKASHA application were like, "Why is it trying to connect to Google?" That was kind of fun now in the middle of the presentation. So, getting back to Ethereum, after the successful Ethereum crowdfunding campaign, I oversaw the Ethereum operations as strategic manager and vice president of the Ethereum Foundation until late 2015. Now, following a successful Ethereum genesis, when everyone was like, "Yay, it actually works, look, now it's time to build our dreams on top of this thing," I focused all my energy on AKASHA, and today I'm going to show you how far we've come in the last year as a project. Now, AKASHA, as a word, has roots in Sanskrit and means ether. And in this culture, ether, or AKASHA, was envisioned as a sort of ethereal network connecting humans with each other and infinite knowledge through this thing called Akashic records, which, to some extent acted like a sort of universal database for storing emotions, ideas, thoughts, and experiences forever. An internet of consciousness, if you will. AKASHA also stands for an acronym, namely Advanced Knowledge Architecture for Social Human Advocacy. We'll touch a bit why on that. So now that we covered the meaning behind the name, let's move on and understand the why behind the project. So, in my opinion, AKASHA is at the same time a technological and a social experiment designed to offer us a glimpse at a future in which our human relations in general are not owned by corporations. A future in which freedom of expression and privacy are not outsourced but back in the hands of people. And through our work we wanted to prove people that it is possible, that we can do better, and that the original dream behind the internet is not dead. It can still be achieved if we creatively combine these new technology, be it Ethereum, some other blockchain, interplanetary file system. There's a whole array of tools that are now available which haven't been before. So, getting back to the dream was about empowering and connecting people, not about mass surveillance and mass manipulation, which sadly is today's reality. But, even if it sounds fancy and noble and like, yeah, sure, let's do that, it also means that we have to solve some big problems that have been challenging for quite a few years when it comes to internet. Things like censorship, for example. And censorship is becoming more and more of a problem these days, as we've seen on various occasions, from Facebook to Twitter to YouTube and everything in between. From accounts banned to tweets deleted and posts removed, we have witnessed increased censorship on all major newsstream and social networks in general. Another big and spiny one is privacy. Now, even if the majority of the existing web services and social networks present themselves as free, you are invisibly paying in micro violations of your privacy. One like at a time, one email at a time, one chat message at a time, until this whole thing and your data that you are leaking like a snail trail behind you takes the shape of an abomination which can predict not only where you are, how are you feeling and with whom, but also where you'll be tomorrow in a 10-meter range. And that's quite spooky. And for those raising their eyebrows, I strongly suggest reading Networks of Control, a report on corporate surveillance, digital tracking, big data, and privacy. Like, it's even worse than you think it is. Like, it's terrible. And this leads to, another big one, collective memory. I mean, today we are in this situation where our posts, our, even Wikipedia and stuff we Google online are hosted on some server sitting somewhere and operated by some entity. So you have that someone there. And this parallels with George Orwell's, 1984 quite strikingly, when we look at ourselves and our society as an information-based society. When you're also putting into perspective the latest, fake news problem, you have the perfect conditions for the emergence of a Ministry of Truth, as depicted by George Orwell. So in other words, basically we have like the ideal mass manipulation tool automatically serving only the true news to billions of people. Yeah. So we got rid of the fake news problem. But if things keep going the way they are, soon 2 + 2 = 5 could be the new truth discovered by humanity. But maybe we are a bit hard on the internet and like these corporations because these problems are older than the internet, and we've bumped on more than once in our history in them. From books and libraries destroyed to people being tortured and everything in between, we have seen many bad things manifesting across ages as symptoms to these problems. Then this new internet thing appeared, and in the beginning it was all this excitement. Yes, we finally had humanity empowered, liberated, a new kind of revolution. And it was believed, truly believed by the pioneers and everyone in this space, as it was proclaimed also as an independent home of mind in the classic Independence of the Cyberspace Declaration. But however, today, again, we find ourselves in a position which is quite different from what we were envisioning 20 years ago, and our freedom of expression and collective memory are outsourced in the hands of corporations with absolute power over them. And to make things worse, actually this is what, there's no internet connection there. If you want privacy or free speech, you're not really getting those on the internet currently. And since the data passes through their servers, technically it is their corner of the internet, and they can do whatever they want with it. And after you clicked, I have read and I accept these terms, which is like the most popular lie these days. You already gave them the right to do whatever they want with your data, so they don't care anymore about respecting them. You just sign. And getting back to problems, these problems are older than the internet. Even if the problems are older than the internet, the scale at which they manifest today is unparalleled in human history, since we're talking about billions of people affected by them. And this is where AKASHA comes in as a product, and it was envisioned as a simple to use but meaningful channel of expression. And I'm about to show you shortly some features, a limited set of features we currently have. But the intention is to leverage these new technologies in an attempt to build a social network that has basic human rights embedded in software. So where you have this freedom of speech thing and you have this privacy thing, instead of making them feature, an option, or a premium, they are just default, because this is how the entire thing is designed to work. So we are in this situation where we have the old problems and they are faced with new solutions. And this, changes things a bit, since the problems such as, who owns my data and should my data be sold without my approval, which should be like no, are now faced with new ways of thinking, and even some of them can be solved from design stage. Because in the end, the root cause behind all this mess is currently on the internet is that you have someone handling your data. From censorship to privacy, it all starts from someone being in the middle, having your data in full control over it. But what if we do things differently? What if we connect users directly with each other? And what if we put users in direct control over their identity and data? Well, we're about to find out. This is AKASHA running on a Mac. By the way, how many in this room have tried AKASHA? Whoa, okay. Oh, nice. Way better than expected. It was like maybe 1, 2. So for you, there won't be so much new stuff to show, but there are some new features coming that I'll present, mainly in the 0.5 release. So basically, getting back to the application, when you start it, like there's no like downloading a blockchain, synchronizing, timestamp, TX confirm, all that stuff. Like for a user starting, like one of these things, like Ethereum or Bitcoin or crypto in general, it's myself like in Mr. Robot. I'm like doing cool stuff. Like maybe I'll leave this as a screensaver so I look smart. So in this case, it's like you make it simple. Like you even have a line there. If you haven't heard of these things, just don't worry. Simply click next, and we'll take care of it. Take care of it. So you have an Express setup, which is recommended. Currently, it runs on a private net, so it downloads like a private chain, and it's recommended not to mess too much with it. But there are also advanced options. I'll skip the advanced, just focus on how smooth the entire process is. So let's see. Yep. So click next. And this is where it starts get client, since it comes bundled with a get client and an IPFS client. And this is where it connected to a bunch of peers, it downloaded the chain, and now I'm up to date. Now regarding the complexity, you can see through the status window that we can see the stuff happening in the background, like chain downloading, synchronizing, chain imported, all that stuff. And we also have the IPFS log showing like the daemon is ready, listening, and you're all ready to rock. The important key, or like the important takeaway here, is that when you start AKASHA, you do not connect to a server, right? That would be bad. But instead of connecting to a server, you connect to a swarm of peers. And otherwise it wouldn't be really a decentralized social network, as it would still depend on some entity operating a server somewhere, and we already covered why that is a bad idea. Now let's get back into the data and see how identity works, like walking through the process of creating an account. Yeah. Let's see. Yes. So here it is. I clicked to create an account, and it's pretty standard, what you would expect from a normal social sort of web thing. You have an ID, you have a first name, a last name, you select a passphrase, and you also have like optional details like your avatar, your background, maybe a short description, some links to your Twitter, Facebook, whatever other social media you're using, but we'll leave that out. So this is how a basic account works. You just input that data, and here in the background you're also creating an Ethereum key. You're also receiving a token transaction from our faucet, which is like just to testing things out. And all this stuff happens like in a pretty user-friendly way. You don't really have to understand what's happening. You get some updates in there. And after the Ether is sent to the newly created key, you're actually publishing a smart contract profile. So without having to understand a lot about blockchain and all this cool stuff, You just created a smart contract profile that can be accessed only by you through the private key you generated. And as you can see in the background, we can also find the transaction ID, which was behind launching the smart contract. Now, this is how, by using Ethereum in this case, and IPFS for storing things like the avatar, the background, the image, and all that stuff, we can move from this paradigm where we have to rely on this central provider for managing your credential and online identity to a paradigm where each user is in full control over their identity. And this is pretty cool because this leads to personal identity freedom online, which is a thing completely, like missing from the internet these days. And here's the kicker. Your identity is also your wallet because you have created an Ethereum key in the background. You're all set with an Ethereum address, so it wouldn't be much of a leap to have also payments embedded in this. So this is my account. You see there's an Ethereum address in there, and this is an Ethereum address of the newly created account. I'm just going to log in with this account to show you a bit how it is inside. So this is on the AKASHA tag inside the stream. I'm just going to, this is like the profile panel where you see notifications and stuff, but this is the people tab where you can see all the latest profiles created on the AKASHA network. And for example, this Rick Hall is one of the latest users that created an account. As you just saw, I clicked follow, and since we have this 14-second delay between blocks, we had to, like some of the interactions are happening in the background while you're able to do other stuff. Like for example, now I'm sending a tip to his address, and in the meantime, I can also read, for example, his post, which is like he's curious about blockchain and Ethereum projects. Seems like a smart thing. Another cool thing is that the upvotes have a quadratic voting mechanism which have micro transactions attached. So you can send anything from 1 cent to about $1 by simply playing with the weights in your vote, the value being in Ether. So this is pretty much how financial interaction works, and as you can see, you can easily tip other people by simply pressing the 3 dots and just click the tipping button. Same dialogue. You have automatically pre-filled. This is something that ENS probably, yes, we should talk. Yes, definitely. And again, we have the same scenario where previously we had this entity in the middle and data centers holding your stuff or processing your payments. But the cool stuff is that since we're building on top of Ethereum, we already have like a payment network in place. We can, this is like a side benefit, a side effect or the synergy by building on top of Ethereum. And this is quite interesting in the possibilities it opens and the synergies born from this. Paying, for example, for an Ethereum service outside the AKASHA ecosystem, because contracts can talk to themselves, and basically you have like addresses to sending money home to your friends or family, or crowdfunding the next idea are all like viable options suddenly, because you don't have to worry about this stuff. It just works. So this is freedom of transaction, which is also pretty cool to have. And then here we are, the big one, censorship resisting publishing. This was a bit of a challenge, since storing all the stuff on blockchain is like super expensive and it wouldn't like be smart. So here we use like the IPFS for storing content, and the IPFS hashes pointing to the content are stored in a smart contract. So that's happening in the background, but to exemplify how like publishing works, again I'm going to log in with random cat, because on AKASHA nobody knows you're a cat. Yeah, that was sort of a joke. Yes, it worked. So here we are, bonjour Paris. We are writing some stuff in the editor. It's like simple, medium, like get away the clutter and all the stuff that's not interesting. We're communicating through the ether, Ethereum plus IPFS equal love, all that stuff. And then that we have, like the romance in there. We hit publish, and this is where you add some tags. For example, AKASHA, Paris, and EDCON, since it's going to be relevant. And then you can, for example, change the preview shown in the card that's generated for each published article. You also have some license options from all rights reserved to where in the middle attribution to Creative Commons. You can also select like which one you want to have as default. And here we are publishing stuff on IPFS and the Ethereum network. So for the user, like pretty much resembles publishing on a normal app, but what happened behind was completely different. And some of this complicated stuff is actually hidden on purpose, because it's not exactly, helping users to publish things. It would definitely be something interesting to learn, but okay, yep, fine. I'll try to squeeze. So again, we remove the publishers. Each one is their, like their own publisher. You don't have to rely on some entity or server somewhere. Users just communicate and share information directly. And by taking this approach, I think we are solving by design the censorship problem, since, no servers, no problem. Well, there are some other problems, but not those problems. Like these problems are better than those problems. Thanks, sir.
Can you solve the other problem?
We're working on it. We'll touch upon that later. So here I am connected from the other identity, my identity, and I can vote. So basically I'm seeing the entry published from a different account. And as you can see on the right screen, you also have like a 0 ETH, which is like our test token currently. As I'm typing a comment saying bonjour and bonjour everyone, you should also see the balance in the right corner updating. So the user has now received 0.1 Ether from a simple upvote. So this is completely separate from tipping, which are like normal transactions. And this is freedom of speech, you don't depend on anyone, not even us, to publish stuff. It's there, the infrastructure is in place. You have this application making it simple to use it, so just go ahead and enjoy these rights. Now Whisper is a really cool layer in Ethereum, and recently we started to experiment with it a bit more. And the first feature we implemented was chat, which is group chat. And you have like a Slack-like or IRC similar interface where you can type messages, and you can also like join various chat rooms. I'm just clicking like EDCON, writing something. It's just me. Maybe later I'll see you there. And I can get back to AKASHA Alpha to see that messages are published and all that stuff. Now, the cool part again is that instead of relying on some entity, passing the messages from one user to another, we have this that allows people to communicate directly to each other without any third-party interference, and there are a lot of privacy-enhancing things that we just started playing with. And this is the most recent experiment, Whisper-based searching. And this is quite cool, I think. Because it it solves the problem of really intrusive user tracking, like what you're looking for, when you're looking for, what goes on in your mind when you're searching for that thing. And just to showcase how simple it is, it looks in this. You have that the search button, which was disabled until now. And now I just type Paris, and magically you have like the article there. Yes, we can search for content. Which is like a big achievement in itself. And just to brag, I'm going to search also something like Ethereum, I think. Yeah, so it works. It's quite new. It might be glitchy from time to time, but soon we'll also introduce for people and more areas inside the application. As you can see, it works also for Ethereum project, so Ethereum articles that have the keyword in there. And again, this touches upon the entity managing the searches for you, and then this entity selling also your data and your searches to other third parties which are analyzing. This is like an inception fractal of like really bad stuff. But here, by using Whisper, you just you make a request. You can see the request and what data you're getting, but you don't know exactly who made the request, which is kind of cool. You have untrackable private searching. But this is privacy. And from the beginning, what we made to achieve with this application is to make it simple in the user interface, but significant in the way it works. So you have these rights that we want to see respected online. We embedded them in software and provided a nice UI. And this is something I'd like to stress, and I'm running out of time. But AKASHA in the current form is just like an experiment scaffolding of sorts, which should allow us all to test ideas, to test bold ideas. And one of the ideas that many people ask is like tokens. When are we doing an ICO? Is AKASHA going to have its own token, and so on? So we said we're going to leave that at the end. We're going to take an experiment-driven approach. We're going to test various token models and see which one actually fits better in the context of a social network. And the idea is that we deserve a better web. We now have the tools to build it. And this project can be about taking back our freedom of speech, which is something we should hold dearly, personal privacy, and collective memory. And in the process of doing this stuff, we get from this picture where the internet and free speech and privacy are totally unrelated things, to this paradigm where the internet, privacy, and free speech can be united by these new technologies, making the original dream behind the internet real. And even if we don't know everything from the start, as someone pointed out a bit earlier, we know something. These basic human rights, such as freedom of expression and privacy, must be part of the solution, because otherwise they're not good solutions. And this is quite exciting, and in the opening someone said something very inspiring, that we have it cool, we have it good. And this is like a crypto renaissance, you having your laptops, traveling to the world, coming up with brilliant ideas on how you can put these things together and build something that can truly change the world. Change the world through blockchain was also a word that I've heard quite often. And this is our take on how we can, build a better future, because the future is not a place we get to visit, but a place we get to create together. And on this note, I'd like to end by saying that there are still problems, as pointed earlier, and this will be a marathon, not a sprint. But we expect every step of it to be enlightening. And things like tokens and incentives are one of the challenges we invite all of you to brainstorm and come up with ideas. We have a few ideas related to how we can incentivize the creation of open knowledge, and I think someone from Koala IP is here. Yeah, we need to talk also. Identity and reputation is another big one. Reputation was reputation would be so cool, but it's still out there, kind of theoretical. Now we have this framework that we can use to test the idea we have. It might not be perfect, it probably won't be perfect, but at least we have a starting point on top of which we can iterate. And not least scalability and architecture when it comes to building this stuff. The contracts and the user interface is not yet open source. We are planning to open source them by the beta launch. But in the meantime, anyone that is interested in helping out, collaborating, or coming up with ideas on how we can solve any of these challenges, or has some interesting idea from the Ethereum ecosystem on how we can collaborate, is invited to get in touch. And we can also exchange information. If you have further questions and stuff, I'll be around. Thank you very much for your attention.